And we're back for another episode of Michigan Wolverines Live, number 84. We're raking them in there, Mark. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, John. Appreciate you being here. And yes, we will soon be on that 100 mark, but episode number 84 at this point. So, folks, we invite you in and leave those comments and questions.
Absolutely, yes. And please do us a favor. Just takes a second. It's free. Hit the like button. Subscribe to Voice of College Football and the Michigan channel, both, because we are this close to some big goals on both the Michigan channel and the Voice of College Football main channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, just if you don't mind doing that, that way you'll also get notified when stuff goes live and hit the bell and all of that good stuff. So it'll actually help you stay, because sometimes I forget shows are happening, and then I get notified that shows are happening, and it's a nice little reminder.
And shows are happening all the time.
They really are. It's everywhere I turn, I'm like, oh, there's another show. There's there's an Oklahoma show, and it's all good stuff. Did want to just mention real quick, those of you who haven't heard, we just lost a good friend of our show, and Voice of College Football, Chris, Golden Blue Dude. So he has a GoFundMe because he has 4 kids, and so I donated a little bit. I couldn't donate a ton, but even if you have a couple of bucks that you can throw over to the GoFundMe, I think it's pretty close to. So I think we're over 12K now in the GoFundMe, and that happened in like a day. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to thank John, and I want to thank everybody that joined us last night. We went live for a few hours, 2.5 hours, something in that range last night. And, the outpouring of love and support and respect and honor for Chris was overwhelming in the chat. And of course, we provided the GoFundMe link, and I have absolutely no idea how much of that was contributed off that show, but whatever it was, that was the intent. First and foremost, in addition to sharing memories, and to honor Chris, was to push that initiative and that support as much as possible. So I was very happy to see from 9 or 10 o'clock last night up until a few hours ago, we're at 12,000 plus. So that's great.
Absolutely. And, I didn't know him as well as you did, Mark, but I did have the privilege of doing a couple of shows with him over the last couple of months with Big Ten, and we did some watch parties with Golden Blue Dude and also Joey. And he was always awesome. And, so it's always tough. So yeah, if you have a couple of bucks, it does look like some of our community is already, good old Jason, always there for us, who already donated. So thank you so much. My mom's going to share the link. So this is great. We have everybody pitching in to share the link. Awesome.
And it would be my guess, John, that this would be Chris's second favorite show, because the color scheme is very close to West Virginia.
That's fair. Yeah, I remember Joey said, "Well, then there's the real Golden Blue school," but I know that I know we'll do this in honor of him, and I know he would want us to jump into all the controversies and all of the different things that are happening, but we'll start with some spring game takeaways. So really the kind of the big one. And Mark, you just did a live stream on this spring game as well on Voice of College Football Maine and Michigan channel. And, the thing that I noticed the most, the spring game is a great opportunity to look at players who don't normally play, right? Because sometimes your starters are out. Both of the top 2 running backs were out. There were multiple different players out for different reasons, or they didn't play much. Maybe they had a few snaps in the first quarter and then they were out. Like, I didn't see Cornelius Johnson in there very long but what I noticed in every position is that the depth of the team is even better than I thought. I knew that this was going to be a team that had depth with 81% returning production, all that stuff. But what I think that the use of the transfer portal this offseason has been borderline masterful. And the reason that I say that is that these players who have transferred in have gotten a grasp of the offense in what, a couple of weeks, a couple of months tops, after spring ball, and they're already. I mean, we're going to be awarding some people these awards, and one of them is a transfer from Indiana. So, I mean, do you think, in your opinion, I mean, you watch all these teams. Do you think that with what you saw in the spring game that there's enough depth to compete, not just in the Big Ten, but maybe even in the postseason this time?
So I do my best to reserve judgment watching a spring game, because I think we need to keep in mind that this is 1 out of 15 sessions in the spring.
Yep.
And I think there's been a traditional take through the years that this is kind of while it is the culmination of all these practices and scrimmages, that it's kind of the showpiece. And it is from a public relations standpoint, to have the television cameras there and for people to be able to watch it. Yes, it's extremely important from that standpoint. From a football standpoint, I don't know that it's any more important than the other 14 practices. It's probably one of the 3 most important, because they'll play maybe 1 scrimmage per week. So they get in 2 or 3 or 4 scrimmages. So I would think that it's right up there with the other ones. And maybe when you think about it, there might be less on display in the spring game, because it is on television and they don't want to unveil any secrets to their competition. That said, it's still meaningful. So for me, I'm right there with you that, number one, spring games can get a little messy. They can look a little off kilter. They looked pretty sharp across the board. Like, there wasn't a whole lot to really be criticized there, and which is difficult, because obviously every play that's made, you can scratch your head and say, do we credit them or do we blame them? They're all on the same team. So that was a well blocked running play by the offensive line, or that was poorly defended by the defensive front. But I just think that, from what we know about this team, we know that, as you've stated, that it's a well-stocked team with significant depth, better depth than any team that we've seen under Jim Harbaugh. And I think that was evident on Saturday.
Yeah, I think this gives 2016 a run for their money. And I think that was another team where you had the senior Hoke players mixed with Harbaugh people starting to come in, and it was pretty stacked. And I think this team gives it a run for its money. Also, hey, Tiger Paw, thanks for coming in. So we've been kind of having a little fun back and forth with the Clemson show, and so Jordan and Tiger Paw come on to this stuff, and I try to go over there and help, hang out with them, and so it's a nice little Clemson, Michigan, kumbaya situation.
Yes, kumbaya, because those guys are probably closet Ohio State haters. So they've latched on to Michigan. Here's their Big Ten team.
I think that might be a factor there.
That was a simple connection I made right there.
The Clemson Ohio State rivalry is getting to the point where it's not at the level of Michigan Ohio State, but it started to become a little bit of a rivalry there between you guys.
Yeah, when you play like 4 postseason games in 8 years, it's going to happen. Now, Michigan keeps making the playoffs, then this kumbaya may end at some point, because these two may run into each other.
It's very possible, and I've said Clemson is. Yeah, there you go. So I think Tiger Paw just confirmed. Yeah, I think that they are going to probably butt heads in a couple of these playoff games coming up. I've said Clemson is a dark horse for a top 4. Everybody's kind of saying, okay, probably Georgia, probably Alabama, probably Michigan, probably Ohio State. But I'm saying, well, don't forget about Clemson, and don't forget about maybe even USC figures out their defense. So it's very possible, like you said, that could happen. But anyway, back to spring takeaways. JJ McCarthy is actually participating this year in spring practice. If we remember from last year, he wasn't. And so what you're seeing is, especially with both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards out for spring, they actually have to focus on passing a little bit, because really it's a perfect time to start looking at that and looking at who you have in your receiver core, both with starters and your people coming up for 2024. And what I've seen is, despite some early shakiness, which I think Devin Gardner said this too, and he's former Michigan quarterback, that there was some wind and some temperature going on. And if Devin Gardner's saying it, I'm going to take his word, knowing the position way better than I do. But then he started to really gel, I think, at the end of his time. And it was interesting. They put him in. They didn't do what they did with Cade last year, where I was almost sure that JJ was going to be quarterbacking both teams for a decent chunk, but they put him only in the Mays team. So I thought that was interesting that they decided to do that, and it was almost kind of like a head-to-head with Tuttle a little bit there.
Yeah, well, I know with our watch party that we had, certainly the non-Michigan portion of the live chat jumped immediately on that first drive pick, and we saw some TCU jokes in there.
Oh yeah,
early.
Oh yeah. Well, and you have the occasional Buckeye show up and make a TCU joke, especially, and some of the other schools that aren't big fans of Michigan, and then so they got to have a little fun. I think there was some Notre Dame people in there. And that's part of it. I mean, JJ, the reality of JJ is that JJ giveth and JJ taketh away a little bit. So I think that his talent is a level that I don't think Michigan has seen since, I don't know, Chad Henne. I mean, it's been a while since you've had a quarterback that's as dynamic as JJ, but just like Brett Favre did, just like other kind of top quarterbacks that made it really far, they threw some picks. Peyton Manning threw picks. Brett Favre threw picks. And I'm not saying that he's that good, but I'm saying, you got to take risks sometimes. So, I don't necessarily see that as the worst thing in the world, as long as you score more touchdowns than you do throwing picks. But I'm not going to begrudge him for a couple of picks if he also makes some pretty nice deep shots down the field.
His 22-5 touchdown to pick ratio from last season is just fine. That's, for all the criticism and all the ribbing he has taken for the picks. They were obviously 2 pick sixes in a playoff game. They're going to be magnified beyond belief. And that's part of the deal. So like you were alluding to, it's going to be more about when are these picks thrown? If you want to throw one away when it's 59-3 against whoever they've got coming up in these 3 non-conference games.
East Carolina Pirates.
East Carolina. I would not be surprised if East Carolina puts up a little resistance. They're not a bad football team.
And listen, any pirate related team, they can be tough. I've supported the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from time to time, and so you got to watch out for the pirate teams.
But yes, I think Michigan fans would take. I'm sorry to cut you off, John. They would take 5 interceptions again this season. That would be.
I would agree. Yeah, that'd be just fine. I think if there's a few more picks and there's also more touchdowns, that's also cool. So we'll take that too. And I think they're going to have to pass a little more. I do think they're going to have to pass a little more. But here's another piece. Whereas I think before Davis Warren was the definitive number 2, I'm now thinking that it's kind of neck and neck between Davis Warren and Jack Tuttle, maybe 2A, 2B. Davis Warren, of course, had the excellent drive at the end of the game and then the 2-point conversion that caused the Mays team to win 22-21, and they got steak. And the blue team, of course, had the dreaded hot dogs. But Davis Warren did pull that off at the end of the game, and that's something that you want to see in your backup quarterback. But Jack Tuttle had great moments too, maybe a little loose with the ball, and I think that there's a little Indiana still in him. Indiana football still in him. So, they got to coach. Kirk Campbell's got a little bit of work to do there. But, I was impressed with what I saw with both of them, and even Alex Orji had the occasional moment. So I think with quarterback, you want to have some depth in that position. And they all are learning Sharon Moore and Jim Harbaugh's offense to the level that they can execute. And maybe they didn't show the most advanced passing routes in this game. I know they didn't. Antoine called it out. I remember. It's like, what's this? It's like basically the same couple of plays over and over again. Like, well, they're not going to show their whole playbook in the spring game. But the fact that Davis Warren, Jack Tuttle were able to execute the plays that they did call, I think there's some promise in the backup positions.
Jack Tuttle ran it quite a bit. Now, in not reviewing the game, just watching it one time, we would have to go back and see, okay, what was there? Was he really looking to run? Because I don't recall him as being much of a run. Not that he's not capable. He's not a statue. He can threaten the defense a little bit. He can pick up a third down conversion when he needs to. But I saw him play quite a bit at Indiana when Michael Penix was down. And yeah, he's not a runner, but he took off and ran quite a few times in the spring game. Davis Warren looked pretty awful early, but to his credit, that didn't rattle him.
Yep.
He got comfortable and he played much better after his first 5 or 6 throws.
Yeah. And that's also a quality that I think we need. That Michigan needs, because there are going to be moments where Michigan's going to get punched. Okay, you're playing a top 7 ranked last year Penn State team and a top 2, 3 Ohio State team. You're going to get punched a few times. It's just it's going to happen. And so how do you respond to that? And so obviously, we're hoping J.J. McCarthy stays healthy the whole season, plays all those games, and is the starter for all those games. But God forbid something happens. You want to see your backups also with that ability. So I was impressed with the end of the game with Davis Warren there. I think he did a great job.
Yeah, when you really review Michigan's season, at first thought, I think of them as being dominant from the first kickoff all the way through the season. But you bring up those 2 games against the Ohio State, that was anticipated to be an extremely close game. It was until about 8 or 10 minutes left, and then Michigan took it home for a big win.
Yeah.
You mentioned Penn State. Now, Michigan completely outplayed Penn State, but Penn State took a lead early in the third quarter. So it looked like, again, it wasn't deep into the game, but again, a little adversity there with a couple big plays by Penn State, keeping them in the game and giving them a lead. And then, Maryland, that was, a competitive game up until 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. And then, of course, the Illinois game. Last second field goal needed.
Oh, boy. That one, out of all the games I decided to fly to, the one that we almost lost was, I was like, did I just fly from Florida to Michigan to see a loss in the -10 wind chill? And luckily, Moody was able to hit that field goal.
But John, would you rather have shown up for that game? And obviously it was on the fence, on the wire until the last second, the last kick, and pull it out rather than show up and it's 38-0 in the second quarter and you're just sitting there.
Yeah, that's also that's a good point. But the September games are also, Ann Arbor in the fall, just awesome. So even if it's the Pirates or whatever, I'm planning on doing one again September.
Nice.
Or early October. It's I try to get to at least one a year. But we also saw someone else, and we're going to be mentioning him later too. But I was extremely impressed with Peyton O'Leary. And again, this is the routes that were called. You're not looking at the most advanced deep passing concepts in the world in the spring game, but Peyton O'Leary was able to do very well, I think, with 126 passing, receiving yards in the game. people are starting to call him like the Cooper Cup of Michigan. I wouldn't go that far, but I do think that that he is going to contend for starting reps by at least mid-season. Maybe not game one, but he looks good.
Now, we're not talking about a very highly recruited player, I'm guessing here, because I don't remember much about him. I'm looking him up right this second to see where he ranked coming out of high school. So let's see, his 247.
He was a walk-on.
Oh, he's a walk-on. Well, then he wasn't very highly recruited coming out of high school. Okay.
But I think he's on scholarship now. Somebody in the chat can walk on. Yep.
Yeah, I can't find his 247 sports page. So
Yeah.
it probably doesn't exist. So what intrigued me about him making all these plays on Saturday was not necessarily just him, but who was guarding him. Who was covering him was Amarian Walker much of the time. Some of the bigger plays that he made, and Amarian Walker has already established some level of internet fame and kind of this mythic status just based on his freakish athleticism. And then you've got this walk-on against him, and he frustrated him, caught the game-winning 2-point conversion, and made some big plays against him earlier in the previous couple drives.
Yeah. Jason, I'm not sold on Walker. Yeah. I mean, I think you got to give him some time too.
Sure.
I wouldn't, say I wouldn't write him off just yet, but you did see some of the other players in the secondary doing some pretty good stuff. McBurrows even had a really nice play or two in the game. Gier had a couple of nice ones. We'll see. I mean, it's very early, and we'll see what Minner has cooked up, because I think Minner's earned the right to at this point, after the year that they had on defense. I think he'll make the right decisions and put the right personnel in place. But before we move on to awards, just a reminder to join our Discord and talk Michigan Wolverines all the time. You're going to go to patreon.com/MarkRogersTV. And for $5, or you can do one of the higher tiers, and I know, Mark, you're trying to get them to go to $4.99, but $5 for now, you get access to the Discord chat. You get access to special shows and special watch parties that I'm going to try to we'll try to do some more as we get into the summer here and the late spring. And you got when you get to the season, you got your betting guides and all kinds of things. So definitely come on in, join the Knuckleheads, the voice of college football. $5. Okay. The highly awaited by so many, I'm sure, the Spring Game Leaders and Best Awards. So what I'm going to be doing is, this isn't just like ones that we came up with. It's actually ones we asked people in Patreon. We asked people and some of the different Facebook groups, other Wolverine fans around the internet, kind of what they thought about the game, who they thought some of the leaders and best were. And I have to give the first one to Ben Hall, who in the game had 13 carries, 96 rushing yards. Again, it's the spring game. I get it. But against half of Michigan's defense, that's pretty good, and he was able to shine. And the big question coming into this game was who was going to emerge as the third running back, because I've seen C.J. Stokes play in person, I've seen Isaiah Gash play, not super impressed with either of them. There's a couple of others that I know Cole Cabana is out with an injury or something, and so he wasn't in much of the spring game. But Ben Hall was able to really to shine in the game, and I think he's going to contend for the third string running back behind Corum and Edwards. What did you see with Ben Hall's performance?
Well, that was the position that I was looking at most. With most scrutiny, was the third back. Of course, Edwards and Corum not playing the entire spring. So here you go, guys. Let's see who can take that third position, which on the surface doesn't seem like a big deal. But we've had this discussion. Corum missed the final 2.5 games of the season. Edwards missed, I don't remember the exact amount of time in games, but an early portion of the season, and then was limited when he first came back. So even though you've got two studs and the third guy would seemingly just be a guy to pick up carries during garbage time, well, we have a perfect example of both guys getting nicked up, not being able to play.
Yeah.
And so the third guy then becomes the number 2 guy.
Yep.
And we saw a playoff game against TCU in which it would have been great to have seen a number 3 guy that could be a number 2 guy, a legit number 2 guy.
Yeah. And Donovan Edwards has his strengths, and he's a great back. But when your best back is out and you've got a situation where you can't have Donovan Edwards in every single play. You've got to rotate out. And so then again, you saw CJ Stokes and Isaiah Gash not do a whole lot. And, I think Mike Hart, he's a very good running backs coach, but you've got to also, it's not only coaching, right, that goes into it. It's talent, it's ability, it's putting in the work, it's putting in the everything. It's the whole package. And I think that Ben Hall is going to contend pretty early on for that, because you got to find the RB3 as quickly as possible, not just for this year, but remember, we've talked about this on the show. I think this is where you got to look for 2024, and who do you have when all these players are going to go to the NFL or graduate. And so I think he definitely gets a Michigan Wolverines Live Leaders and Best Award for sure. And then we just mentioned Peyton O'Leary, but this man, he was impressive. Okay, 126 yards. He got hit with the turf monster once, but he was able to help at the end of the game, help secure the Mays team's victory with the 2-point conversion at the end of the game. There were a few publications who said, could he be Michigan's Cooper Kupp? And I think it's a little premature to say that, but I do think that that he could contend in the slot position. So you've got Cornelius Johnson and Rowan Wilson in the X and Z positions, but you still got the slot. And there was talk about AJ Henning, but I'm still not sold on AJ Henning. I just haven't seen enough yet. He might be used more in a run concept than the slot even. So you've got an opening for a Peyton O'Leary to come in and make something happen. So I think they'll probably use him in East Carolina and some of the early games and kind of just UNLV and just see what he has. I mean, there's no harm in second quarter, third quarter putting him in and seeing what he can do.
Absolutely. I am right there with you.
Yeah, and Jason, yeah, exactly, Jason. They keep using Henning for sweeps, reverses. It reminds me of who was that player? I can't think of his name. You guys will remember. It was like, was it McDoom, or it was somebody that did a lot of types of reverses and things a couple of years ago. You guys will remember. But yeah, Henning's kind of they're using him in a kind of a gadget way. And so, we'll see. Maybe I think they're going to need his help in the run game a little more in 2023, especially with the fact that they can't overuse Corum and Edwards, right? Especially in the early games where you don't want them to get too nicked up, and both of them are going to the NFL. So you want to give them the highest amount of signing bonus money that they can get for all the work that they did. So yeah, I think you'll see Henning in the run game a little bit, and I think you'll see Ben Hall utilized as well. So yeah, I think it's very, very possible. Here's how about the entire defensive line. So I have the award for the entire defensive line, starters, backups. I was really impressed with what Jesse Minner and his staff are doing in the defensive line, and just being able to, to win those battles. Remember, you're up against, I know it's not the full starting O-line lineup, because it's some starting on each team, some of the backups, and you're mixing the line combinations. But I was really impressed with what I saw, just as a cohesive unit, in the D line. And I think it's promising when you're looking at, okay, especially when you're thinking back to 2021 Georgia, and you're thinking of like, okay, on the one side you have these mountains, and then on the other side, there was a mismatch in 2021, and it was obvious. And I think that what you're seeing with the transfer portal, with the new recruits coming in, and with how they're utilizing these pieces, I think it's promising that we're kind of seeing some of that in some of that growth that's happening.
Yeah, it's like, of course, Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo 2 years ago get all the attention. They're playing on the edges, and it needs to start in the interior. So those guys did the job certainly as well. But it's like what they've produced since then, what they've established, and it goes back to our initial conversation, which was about depth, means that even without stars, and not that they don't have potential stars up front, because they do, but they're even better across the defensive front because of the waves of talent and reps that they're able to give these guys, as opposed to where they were a few years ago.
Yep. And yeah, Jason, absolutely. Defense is looking good. And again, like Mark said at the start of the show, it is the spring game. You got to take some things with a grain of salt. But when you start, I mean, think about it. Iron sharpens iron. And really, the defense is playing probably one of the best O-lines, even with half of the starters on one team and half on the other. You're still playing one of the better O-lines that you're going to be playing all year, right? So I think that some of the early signs are pretty promising there. And Jesse Minner's been doing a great job at replacing Mike McDonald and kind of keeping that system going. I'm also going to give a Leaders in Best award to tight end AJ Barner from Indiana. 3 receptions, 30 yards, and a touchdown. So, another big question that we had coming into this game is what was happening behind Colston Loveland in the tight end room. And I think what we're seeing is, especially with AJ Barner, we're seeing a player that came in from Indiana. This was when I alluded to the transfer portal earlier. They're picking up the offense pretty quickly, and Jack Tuttle obviously had that chemistry with AJ Barner beforehand. But just seeing that Colston Loveland is not going to have to prop up the tight end room by himself, and they'll be able to rotate people out and utilize AJ and some of the other pieces. It's a good sign.
And it's a really good tight end room, potentially, with AJ Barner stepping in and being that number 2 guy. And yeah, Colston Loveland is looks ready and primed to emerge as a big time player who's going to put up big numbers.
Antoine's been flying this flag a while. I think we need to upgrade at wide receiver position coach. So get rid of Bellamy, I guess is what he's saying. I don't like the routes. I don't like the technique the wide receivers show, and the development is slow and poor. Yeah, I mean, Peyton O'Leary being the outstanding, maybe the outlier of what you're saying. Because I think that he was able to utilize the basic concepts that they ran in the spring game very well. But yeah, across the board, I think for the last, forever, the wide receiver, we have never been known as wide receiver U. That's the Buckeyes. Let's just be real. They just signed another 5-star wide receiver like today. That's their position. And so have we made strides? Sure. But my question to Antoine and others who want to fire this guy is, okay, who would you get? And don't say Heartline, because he ain't coming. So think of your number 2, get back to me, get back to us on that, because I think that Barner and Loveland, and just think about it. Both, like, you can do a 2 tight end set, both of them on either side, and do some concept. Harbaugh loves his multiple tight ends and his positions there. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with both of these players. Reminder, we'll do a couple of housekeepings. So Big Ten Live is every Monday at 6. And Mark does 6 to 8, and then a guest host. So I've been doing the most of the shows since it started, and it's been a lot of fun. We actually have we have a panel. It gets pretty animated sometimes. We had Mark, I don't know if you watched the 8 to 10 block. We had some strong opinions.
I missed it this last week.
And every week has been like that. We have a nice 3 or 4 people. We do a nice little panel, and people come in, and we've been trying to get hey Penn State fans, come on in. We had a Penn State fan the last 2 weeks. Hey, even like let's find obviously you had the Wisconsin guy on your block, and that I love I don't hear from Wisconsin people very often. So anytime we hear from a school that we don't hear from every week, it's exciting to me to talk about some of the other schools out there. So if you have friends who are Illinois fans or Indiana fans, or a team that Purdue, a team that we don't talk about all the time, please get them to call in. We'd love to have them on either block and hang out with us. Don't forget, we have 2 special links for you, Amazon and Fanatics.com. So if you're shopping on Amazon, or you want to get some Wolverines merch on Fanatics.com, and you use the links in our description, then Voice of College Football is going to get a little bit of a kickback from that. So if you're going to be shopping for Tom Brady jerseys or Michigan pint glasses or whatever anyway, you might as well click the Voice of College Football link, because that way, at least if you're going to do this stuff anyway, take 2 seconds, click the link, and it'll give Voice of College Football a little something. And we do have a merch store, something for everybody on the Voice of College Football merch store. I am in awe of how much Joey Foster has been able to compile in terms of different types of things. So you got the best selling items is how you can sort, and I love this because it looks like the mug has taken first place in our thing here. But the hoodie's also up there. I know Mike got the hoodie. Shirts, you got tote bags, you got stickers, you got light a candle for a certain team. You can have some jokes about that. You name it. And it looks like they've added it. Yeah, it looks like there's I think Joey keeps adding stuff. But yeah, you've got swim trunks, you got everything. So something for everybody on the merch site.
Yes, Joey, thank you so much for that. It's pretty remarkable. So yeah, just check it out, give it a look. And again, as I've mentioned many times, we took a lot of time and effort into trying to make that best combination of pricing and quality. So check it out. We've received nothing but great feedback.
Absolutely. All righty. Okay, Joey. Okay, so yeah, once we're done the show, yeah, I guess Joey is texting you. So just FYI. Okay. Alrighty. So I'll kind of open this one here. 5-star quarterback Jaden Davis has committed to Michigan officially. We had a whole show. We had a whole hour and a half on it, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but I do want to talk about the ramifications of it. The positive ramifications, the positive things that are going to come from that. So obviously Jaden Davis wanted to meet Kirk Campbell, quarterback's coach, in person. I think Kirk Campbell is doing a fantastic job so far in what he's doing, both coaching and kind of what I've read in the various media outlets about how practices are run. He's very transparent, like they know what they need to do every minute of every grouping of every piece of their schedule. And I think that it's showing also in the recruiting. in terms of what we're seeing there. So what's next? There are 4 players, including one that is going to be announcing Friday, Andrew Sprague, 4-star O-line. But you also have Providence Day, Channing Goodwin, and Jordan Shipp, both of whom play with Jaden Davis now. So he's going to try to keep that band together in the 2024 class. You've also got a Marion Stewart who played with Jaden Davis in the McDonald's game and said that Davis coming would increase Michigan's chances. And not only that, but Jaden is recruiting Ohio State commits per our buddies at Blue by 90. So Jaden Davis is hitting the recruiting trail. He said he would. So in the press conference right after he made the announcement, he said, I'm gonna get on the recruiting trail now. And now that I've committed, I'm all in, and I'm gonna be calling everybody and trying to bring them over. So do I think he's gonna, do I think he's gonna like light it on fire in terms of getting Ohio State commits that are already like, no, I think some of them would rather, probably play for Heartline, right? Especially if you're a wide receiver. But guess what? He's all in, and he's clearly he's taking a JJ McCarthy approach. When JJ committed, then he started doing the same thing. Now the circumstances are different because that was the COVID disaster year that Michigan won 2 games. Okay, so that was a little different when he was working the phones. Then now Jaden Davis working the phones and the texts and everything and the DMs. So all I can say to this is look out on Friday because Andrew Sprague is going to make his announcement on Friday. And my strong guess is that it's going to be Michigan. I think it's like a 95% likelihood at this point that it's Michigan. So he's announcing Friday in just 2 days. So that would be really interesting. But yeah, now that Jaden Davis is here, he's going to be trying to work the line and try to get people over to Michigan. What do you think the impact, Mark, is of now that Jaden Davis has officially committed, the saga is over and he's here, and now like a player like that, trying to hit the recruiting trail with all the people that he's known over the years?
Well, I think the impact and the benefit from recruiting and signing a top level player is number one, the most obvious thing. You want that player from just a playing perspective, the talent on the field. Okay. And I guess number 2, you're keeping him away from potential opponents and rivals. Next to that, it's exactly what we're seeing here with, especially at the quarterback position, but for any top-notch player. But again, especially at the quarterback position, because they are a leader, they do have a direct impact on, especially the wide receiver position and the other offensive positions that, they can become a more effective recruiter maybe than any coach on the staff because they wield a lot of direct influence. They have friends. Talent wants to play with talent. I think, kind of a third benefit to that's somewhat connected, but not directly, is that, it's just a perception. It's a perception that, okay, things are going well. Things are good there. If Michigan is good enough for Jaden Davis, then Michigan's going to be good enough for me, that I better look deeper into this or give them more consideration, or just flat out, this breaks the tie. So it's nothing but positives.
So, your buddy, Zach Smith, has been nominated in the chat as the new wide receivers coach of the University of Michigan. I'm sure he'd love that. Yeah, that's never going to happen. I'm sorry, guys. Hate to burst your bubble. That's probably less likely than Heartline, if possible. Wow.
Who came up with that? Is that Jason?
There's a few people. We got Yeah, very the Rod Farva, maybe. Apparently grew up a Michigan fan, so who knows? Yeah, we've got a couple of people saying, yeah, Zach. Well, yeah, he's not coming, guys. Sorry. And I mean, give Bellamy another year, because I think what we've been hearing is that JJ has been pushing, and I think he's going to get it, for more deep passing routes. And we've talked about this on a previous show that aren't just like, hey, let's improv and hey, go over this way. No, I think they're going to be designing, especially against Penn State and Ohio State, more complex, deep passing routes. Cornelius Johnson got a lot of confidence in the second half of that season, especially in Ohio State game, and the Purdue game. Cornelius Johnson, Rowan Wilson, and even what we've been seeing from Peyton O'Leary, he might be somebody that you go to maybe for a medium range pass. So I'd say give him one more year, guys. Let's see what we can do. I don't think they're going to be making any wide receiver coaching changes just yet. But yeah, give him another. Wow. Okay, I don't know about this one. Okay, I know I know I've seen you in a couple. We appreciate all your Wolverine love, and I've seen you in a couple of the Buckeye rooms too. I don't know about all that. If you look at what Gaddis did at Miami, if you watch the film of what was happening in Miami and what was happening at the University of Michigan, I don't agree. I think that the wide receivers are very undisciplined in both settings. And if you look at Miami, I mean, oh man, it was rough. They could barely score at all that last year. So I don't agree with that one. But yeah. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be rehiring Gaddis. And well, now he's hooked back up with Maryland. So and talking with that. So I think that's interesting. Yeah, Andrell. Yeah, I mean, Andrell just never really popped off. I mean, except for against Michigan State, which yes was under Gaddis. But I think that's like Andrell was given his opportunities. I was there when Andrell dropped a pivotal ball that would have probably completely changed the momentum of that game. And I don't think that's necessarily Bellamy's fault. Bellamy put him in the right position. He ran the route. He just didn't catch the ball. So I don't know about all that, but so we had our couple of awards. If we missed anybody, if you wanted to, if there's somebody other than Ben Hall, Peyton O'Leary, D-Line, and AJ Barner, you could make a case for Davis Warren, Jack Tuttle. But I'd love to hear in the chat or in the comments anybody that we missed in terms of a Leaders and Best Award. But to continue in our must-see TV block for Voice of College Football, coming up in about 10 minutes, we're all going to go over to the Florida State Seminoles show at 6 p.m., where Mark is going to be talking with some of the media and experts who talk Florida State football and talk about the state of that program. So that's always a good one to watch too.
They are mighty hyped up and excited about this season. They have been a complete non-factor since they beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl. That's the last good season they've had. Well, last year was a good one, coming back to 10-3. But yeah, it's been a rough ride for Florida State. But they are looking pretty significant in a lot of preseason polls. But we'll see what they've got. A lot of returning starters and production coming back. But yes, we've got Florida State at 6 and Miami at 7.
Oh, and your buddy's on here. So we'll have that be the final comment of the night. Elvis Nation has stopped by, and I stopped by Elvis Nation like a week or so ago and said hi because they give us love, and I wanted to go over there, and they were playing some good songs, and so that's they have a nice channel over there, and just reminding everybody to hit the like button. It only takes you a second to do that. But I put the link to the Florida State, so head over there. The link to Golden Blue Dudes. Obviously this whole episode was dedicated to him and his memory. So definitely, if you have $5 to spare to help his family out, please do so. Looks like a bunch of our community has already done that, and so we appreciate that. And Mark, I'll see you in 10 minutes. I'll be watching Florida State.
Thank you for that, John. And I do want to make one other programming note. So after Florida State at 6 and Miami at 7 Eastern time, there is a special on Golden Blue Dude's channel to honor Chris. So I've been asked to jump on over there, and so that will be at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Okay, so you've got you have a busy couple of hours, so I'm gonna let you go get a water break or something.
Yes, let's
But
do that.
thanks to everybody for coming on and giving comments and donating and all the things that you always do. So we appreciate the whole community. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks, John.